welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the Metropolitan Davidson County school system, and we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the school system this morning, Mr. Craig Owensby. Mr. Owensby is the spokesperson for the Metropolitan School System. Is that correct, Mr. Owensby?
That's correct. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Very good. We're glad to have you here this morning to talk about the Metropolitan School System, because I think that quite recently there's been quite a bit of information in the media regarding the system. And let's start off, Mr. Owensby, however, by having you to give us some information about your background and your experiences and your education and some of the things that eventually led you to hold the position as the spokesperson for the school system.
I get asked that a lot. People ask me, why and how did you get where you are right now? And I was a news reporter for years. I was in TV news from 1977 to 1995. Most recently, 10 years with Channel 5 here in Nashville.
Most of us remember that, Mr. Owensby. But now go on in reference to how did you get there? You moved from there to the school board and...
Yeah, to the school district. The way you get ahead in the TV news business is you keep moving on to bigger and bigger cities. So I went to school at Indiana University and worked in Cadillac, Michigan for a while, and then Terre Haute for a while, and Jackson, Mississippi for a while, and Wichita for a while, and kind of did the television gypsy approach for a while. And the last 10 years are here in Nashville. That was where my wife and I started buying houses and having kids and realized we wanted to stay here. It got to a point where I had taken that television business about as far as I was going to take it. And it was a question of either, well, the offers that were before me at the time, I had an offer to stay with Channel 5, one to go with a station in a different city, or to go with the district, the schools. And I've been at it for 18 years. I'd seen pretty much all I wanted to see, taking it where as far as I was reasonably going to take it. And I thought it was time to take a new direction into something where I could do somebody some good.
I think many of us who are familiar with your career, Mr. Owensby, and as you said, you were with Channel 5 for many, many years, and many of us remember you with Channel 5, sort of wondered about that when you decided to go with the district, you see, going directly. As a matter of fact, I think that there were several people out of that whole range who went into other areas. I recall Brian, another one of your colleagues, went into the prison system, did he not? Correction system, did he not? I think as a spokesperson for the...
Brandon Maloney.
Brandon
Maloney from Channel 5 went to work for the prison system.
Yeah, I thought
and,
that.
Of course, Mark Drury, who was at 5 at the time, was now the mayor's office.
Okay, very good. And I've had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Drury. Yeah, so very good. So in a real sense, as the spokesperson for the school system, exactly what do you do? And explain to our audience something about the system and about, and if possible, give us some numbers in terms of the school system, that kind of information that we ought to have.
The actual title is Director of Communications and Community Relations. And basically what that means is I do or most of the media interviews. I do the media relations, do a lot of public speaking to community groups, that kind of thing. And I didn't realize this till I got there, but I also am in charge of the print shop. So when your report card shows up, your child's report card shows up, it comes under my responsibility, right? This is a really large school system. It's one of the biggest ones in the whole country. I think we're the 30th or 31st largest. And most school systems this size would have a whole troop of people doing what I'm doing with me and a secretary and a person who does publishing and writing. Louisville, for example, has about 20 people in their communications office. We've got 3, and the Louisville school's only slightly larger than we are.
Good.
But our mandate here is to tell the community basically where their tax money is going and what is going on in their schools. And there was some question when we first started this department. It was a position that was created about the time I got there. There was some question, why do you need to do that for a public agency? And my response is, where else are you going to find a $400 million company with 9,000 employees and literally hundreds of thousands of customers that doesn't have anybody telling the customer what's going on, which is my mandate. We're responsible for that money, and I have to tell people where it's going.
Now, how many people are we dealing with, and what about the school system? Give us some kind of idea in terms of the scope of the school system and the number of people that we're dealing with, and some of the elements, some of the things that you consider to be important in terms of letting folks know where the money is going.
It is larger than a lot of people realize. It takes up the whole 500 some odd square mile county. And as I said, we're the 30th, 31st biggest school system in the country. We have over 70,000 students. And the example I like to use there is we have more students in our schools than there are people in Bowling Green.
So with an enrollment of some 70,000, that's from K to...
From pre-K through adult. We, in fact, are obliged to serve students until their 22nd birthday if they want to stay with us. In some cases, special ed and adult ed, we do have students that old or even older.
And all of that makes up more than 70,000 students.
70,000 students and about 9,000 employees, between 4,500 and 5,000 of our teachers.
And you've got schools that are... Now, what about the makeup of the high schools and the elementary schools? Is there any kind of general pattern that people should know about when they think about the K through the pre? I think you already mentioned the pre-K folks. And what is the general pattern from there through the comprehensive schools and et cetera?
I really think the most important thing to know about a pattern is that there really isn't one. We have schools that serve grades K through 2. We have some that are K through 6. We've got one that's 5 through 12. You know, in fact, there's an expert at the University of Tennessee whose specialty is measuring the effect of changing schools on kids. You know, when you and I change jobs, your performance suffers a little bit. And this expert said whenever he wants to study a certain grade configuration, he comes to Nashville because whatever he might look for, we've got it. Now that's about to change, and change for the better, and we'll get into that in a minute.
Okay, very good. And as a matter of fact, quite recently, there was some issue dealing with this whole system, dealing with the teachers, and quite a bit has been said in terms of negotiations. And why don't you explain some of the issues behind that? I mean, how did we come to an impasse where we had to have an outside negotiator and et cetera? And what were some of the issues involved with that from the very, very beginning for those like myself who might not know anything about it and et cetera, that kind of perspective?
So let me say first that by the time this gets on the air, the situation will be settled. As we speak today, it is just about settled. The membership of the union is in the process of voting on it. We have had, for many years, a really lean school system. It's real easy to say that, you know, like you would about any bureaucracy, to accuse us of, you know, sitting up there in fancy offices and spending money on this and that. But in fact, we spend less than 2% of our total budget on central office administration. And the largest part, over 3/4 of our spending, goes directly into the classroom. Now that includes teacher salaries. We are way behind on maintenance. There is a lot of building we could do and are starting to do. And the reason I bring it up is that when the salary negotiations started this year, there was a big difference between what the school district was offering and what the teachers union was wanting. And as a rule in those situations, if one's here and one's here, you meet someplace in the middle. And it got to a point where we were saying, look, we really and truly can't afford to put out more than X amount of money. And it got pretty ugly. I mean, it got to where people were coming to, you know, disrupting school board meetings, that kind of thing. And, you know, in the last couple of weeks, it's been the first time in a while that I haven't seen awful things about me personally in the union newsletter, which kind of rolls off your back after a while. But there came to be, after 13 months of negotiation, this atmosphere of one side's over here, one side's over there, and you know, this side can't move because the money's not there, and that side won't believe it. And the way to work it out, we thought, was to bring in a third party from the outside. The Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service, federal government agency, they have an office up in Louisville, and they sent us a mediator whose job was quite literally to put one set of negotiators in one room and the other set in another room and go back and forth and try and work something out. And it went on for a few days, and it wasn't settled, but you know, he thought it was encouraging enough to come back and try again. So we took a break for the holidays, and it came back for a few more days. And finally, the mediator worked something out that, you know, he was very upfront. He said, this isn't going to please either side, really. But
that's a compromise.
Yeah, it's not going to please either side, but it looks like the best we're going to be able to do. So both sides were able to, if not embrace it, at least accept it. The school board voted to accept it. The leadership of the union voted to accept it. The only step left to take as we speak is going to the individual membership of the union and polling them. That's going on, and that'll be decided by the time this gets on the air.
And it is believed that this group will probably accept it too.
I certainly hope so.
Okay.
It's gone on too long.
Very good. And of course, we're coming up now, Mr. Owensby, to our first commercial break in about 10 or 12 seconds, and then we'll come back and deal with the second segment of the show and allow you to talk about some other aspects of the